All right, Zig on the top. Today on the show, we have Jason Prufer. Jason is an author, filmmaker, and musician. For the last 15 years, Jason has been working with Robert Kidney of the Numbers Band on a documentary called Out of Obscurity and Into Oblivion, a film about the Numbers Band. June 6th, they're having a premiere of the film at the Cedar Lee Theater here in Cleveland. It is sold out, but more showings will be announced. If you follow the Numbers Band on their website and the social media platforms, you can be informed on that. Jason is also helping the Numbers Band manage all that, as well as their Patreon. This was a really fun conversation. I love people who are enthusiastic about what they care about. And when Jason tells stories about finding some of this footage and some of these like recordings, you can just hear the enthusiasm. And what's cool about it is since he helps with their media and their Patreon, you can go find those recordings and hear them in their entirety if you sign up for the Numbers Band Patreon. Jason has also wrote a book called Small Town Big Music, The Outside Influence of Kent, Ohio on the History of Rock and Roll. And this was a side product of him working on this documentary for 15 years. And he gets into that story during our conversation. But it's also a must-read, especially if you're from here. There's some photos he's found when he was doing his research for this film that ended up in the book, is now kind of the poster child of some of these things. Like the few pictures of Joe Walsh with his Les Paul before he sold it to Jimmy Page. You know, the Les Paul that you've seen in every picture of Led Zeppelin. Right here from Kent. Come on, man. It's crazy cool stuff. Anywho, you're going to want to keep an eye out for this film. If you follow the Numbers Band on their website and their medias, you're going to see when the next showing is. Definitely check it out. With that being said, if you can like, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast on any of the podcast platforms, it helps me keep talking to cool guests like Jason and sharing their insight with you. So without further ado, this is my conversation with Jason Prufer.
Page.
Very cool. So I wanted to jump in, let's start talking about this doc. How did you come in contact with Robert and the Numbers Band, and when did they like first resonate with you to the point to where you wanted to make a doc about them?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but let's see if I can shorten this. So I've always been aware of them since I was probably in junior high, and so that's going back into the 80s. And but I would say around 05, 06, a bunch of different people started telling me that they had been catching them at the Outpost here in Kent, and that the shows were like really smoking. And I didn't, not believe them, but the Numbers Band, they're sort of the omnipresent in the sense that they're always around. So it's kind of like, well, maybe I'll catch them next time, or blah, blah, blah. But too many people were saying that they were seeing these great shows at the Outpost. And I was like, okay. And so I decided to catch them for New Year's Eve, 2009, 2010. Although I'd seen them before, like in passing a couple times way back. But when I saw them in 2009, 2010 for New Year's at the Kent stage, I was just completely blown away. And so for the next, and then a buddy of mine turned me on to the Jimmy Bell album at that time. And so I listened to that thing like 100 times. And so for all of 2010, I went to every single show that they did, but I sat in the back of the room, more or less, and was just, I couldn't stop going to see them. And then I would come home and I would look for content online or anything, pro shot videos or anything. And there wasn't anything there. I mean, there was stuff. There was videos and whatnot that people had made with camcorders and stuff like that, but nothing that was replicating what I was experiencing at these shows. So I came up, so I do filmmaking, that kind of stuff. And basically after a year, I approached them with the idea of doing like a concert film, because I wanted the experience that I was having at these shows. I wanted to be able to replicate that and have that be available for people for the next 100 years to experience, 100 years and beyond. And when I approached Bob, he said, okay, that sounds like a pretty good idea, but how about we do a documentary? And 15 years later, we've kind of met somewhere in the middle. So it's not exactly a documentary. It's not exactly a concert film, it's it's sort of an amalgamation or synthesis of both of our visions.
That's awesome. A
Yeah.
consumerary.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a rock film. Did you ever see The Who's The Kids Are All Right?
Yeah,
You ever
yeah,
see that
yeah.
movie? Or that recent Bowie film, the Moon Age Daydream,
Okay.
that kind of thing. It's similar to that kind of stuff, you know. So, a lot of a lot of cinematic and performance elements, with also documentary and historic elements, but not a proper documentary, not a proper concert film. An experience is what it is. It's the Numbers Band experience.
That's gonna be sick, man. That's so cool.
Yeah,
That's so and
that's what
like,
it is.
so I when you so okay so Robert Bob wanted to do a doc. He approached it
Yes.
as a doc, and you were seeing
Yeah.
it more as like capturing this moment of them live, and like I guess like where for you what like the cross through of like how did that like work as far as you know what I mean like was it more like making sure there were certain points hit and then sharing like concert footage from like the can of what you captured and maybe what Robert had, you know what I mean, or was it just kind of like is it a concert?
Well, we started by bringing in. We started with. I mean, when we really started after that first night that we shot footage, we really went with the documentary aspect, or POV, if you will, a theme. I don't know what you would call it, but I embraced the documentary. However, I started like to keep filming them like I was doing a concert film. And then and then I was like doing interviews with them and gathering archival footage that I could find, that people were presenting to me. And so as I was like molding that stuff together, it sort of started to turn into this, the synthesis of both. And Robert really got on board because we were getting something really special. The thing that I'm not a big fan of with proper documentaries is that's fine for a podcast, but it's too much talking heads.
Yeah,
For there's nothing for something for a cinematic experience. There's nothing interesting about somebody's mouth moving
yeah,
and a
yeah, yeah.
head. So we really tried to go for cinematic and experiential, that kind of thing.
That's, I mean, and from hanging out with Robert and just talking with him, that's 100% the way I can see how he would want to do a doc. Like,
Yeah. I mean, he had points that he really wanted to hit on, but I had to manifest those in cinematic ways, and that was very challenging. But we did it. We made it work. And we're both extremely happy with the final product. Of course, it took 15 years, but I mean, it's really cool. I mean, it came out just fantastic.
that's incredible.
You
That's a,
Yeah.
and like, so with the premiere coming up on June 6th,
June 6th, yes.
and there's a showing, there's two showings that night, right?
Oh, right now there's just one showing and it's sold out
Beautiful.
at Cedar Lee.
Yeah.
And we didn't make this movie to show it just one time.
Right.
So we're going to roll out some other stuff, but we're working on that behind the scenes right now. I can't say specifically anything just because we don't have anything nailed down, but we have some options open to us. But as of right now, it's June 6th at the Cedar Lee. Maybe you can find some scalp tickets or something, or I don't know, but it's sold out, and I'm excited about that.
That's super exciting, man. It's like
Yeah.
one. These guys have been around forever. They should definitely, if a doc's coming out about them, should definitely be sold out. It should be sold out
Yeah.
at the Rock Hall. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
Right.
so sick. Very cool. So before, like, is this your first like dive into cinema?
Well, I've been dabbling with filmmaking for 25 years, 30 years, but this is my first dive into like a feature length documentary that's going to be shown in a theater, that kind of stuff, and with the intention of that. All my other stuff is like on YouTube or whatever. And I wrote a book, Small Town Big Music, about Kent, Ohio music, all the cool music stuff that happened in Kent. over the last 50 years. And, so, I'm around in this archival soup, if you will, of content.
Very cool. So
You know.
with the book, is that like as you're going to see the Numbers Band, is that a project you were working on when you really got that bite, or was that something you did before and then you're just like, I got to see these guys?
Well, I was doing like parallel like writing
Mm-hmm.
about Kent stuff, including like numbers band stories. So I wrote a story about, and these were just blogs I was putting out. I wrote a story about the night that the numbers band backed Bo Diddley down at JB's, and and other stuff like that. And the blog started doing really well, and I got approached by a couple of different publishers through a book. And I'm not, I never, I was doing the documentary before I started doing the book. But when the publishers come knocking, you don't say no. I had no intention of being an author, but if somebody wants to take my content and turn it into a book, a real publisher, I'm in. Yeah, count me in. So that's how that happened. So the book was started and finished in the time, since I started working on the documentary. So
That's sick, man. How did
yeah.
so? I guess like because I imagine the documentary being a combo. You're working with Robert in a joint project per se. How did because do you structure it like on a big grand scale of how you're seeing everything roll out for a documentary? And like, no, okay, so it's just
No,
kind
all I know is that the way that we structured it was it started at the beginning
of.
and it ended at the end. And that is, as far as like chronological, like the first part of the movie is the really, really earliest stuff. The last part of the movie is the 55th anniversary concert here. But in the middle, it goes all over the place. It does not go chronologically at all, but we dip into all kinds of different decades with, old news footage, old 16 millimeter film, that we, people who had filmed them in like at JB's and at the Cove in the 70s. We took the 16 millimeter footage, we restored it to 4K, that kind of stuff. I encountered one thing that's really cool is I do their Patreon. I'm behind the Numbers Band's Patreon, working with all their audio and restoring all of the historical like music recordings. So, it's just a matter of just stitching all this stuff together until it's interesting. And that's how that Bowie, that Moon Age Daydream film is like. It's all this restored footage and it just kind of flows. It all flows together into this sort of David Bowie experience. And the same thing with, and so and in that film, there's tons of historical elements, but it's not a proper documentary. It just takes you on this Bowie experience. And the same with The Kids Are All Right, or with that Who film. I mean, you don't really get a particularly great idea of what their history is. But an hour and a half after watching that, you sure as hell feel that band. You sure as hell know their power. You sure as hell know what it's like to be in the room with them or at a concert with them or what their personalities are like. And that's the spirit of this thing. It's not like one of those old VH1 Behind the Musics. It's a different beast than that. Not that those weren't fun, but
Right.
this is a different beast.
Right. Well, it's you're serving, not serving, you're presenting what the actual experience is for the audience from whatever, in those cases, the Who and Bowie, and in this case, the Numbers Band, but also like what it felt like for them too. And that has to be an amalgamation, a wave that you're riding, because it's two ends of a story. And when I watch docs like that, I leave more interested, you know what I mean? Like you want to feel it. And that's one thing when you're live in a room with the band and you feel the band, you feel what the experience is. But then with film, it's different, it can be cut stale. It can, you know what I mean? Like, so that's what makes, an interesting doc, per se, like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we strive to make it cinematic. I mean, it's still a film. But the film is going to get you closer to how it feels to be in the room with the band than just hearing a recording or just seeing, some old camcorder footage or whatever. I mean, we really tried to make this immersive, and with a band that probably would not have the opportunity to manage to show itself in this way, deserves to because this, if you're going to hire somebody, if you're going to hire like an outside source to make a movie like this, it would be insanely expensive. But I just got absorbed into the organization, and I just kept making it, like I was a pro filmmaker. And then 15 years later, it finally got finished. It's not even that I've been working on it the whole time. There's never one second where I was like, well, fuck this. I'm not going to do this anymore. We were constantly chiseling away at this thing, you know. For me, every single day, maybe for 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, but sometimes hours and hours and hours. But it was always part of my life and always part of Robert's life that we were working on this. We finished it. It got over the finish line. So now it's time to show it.
Beautiful. So, because I'm working on a couple projects as well, and working on like a book. And I guess the reason I brought that first question up was like when you're navigating through a book compared to a project like this, like to be doing both at the same time. Do you find was it hard to kind of micromanage that, or was it easier because one's a completely like a book's very structured direction compared to like a film experience?
It was hard. It was a little bit difficult, except that one was complementing the other. As I was researching for the book, I also was stumbling on numbers band content that I wouldn't have found otherwise. And vice versa. As I was researching for the movie, I stumbled upon content that wound up in my book that I wouldn't have found otherwise. So. Honestly, it's now that it's all wrapping up, it's all kind of part of the same, almost part of the same project,
That's cool.
So
yeah.
But it takes a long time. It took a lot longer than I thought, but that's all right. I ain't doing anything else.
Well, and if you're gonna do it, like you might as well do it the right way. Like I've been talking to Robert about his book. He's working on his lyric book, and like, he's very, very intense with it, and like very thoughtful about every word. But that's gonna make all the difference when it's done.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. He's been working on that as long as we've been doing the movie.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Excellent. So when you're like as you're finding this stuff and research it, one, I'm so glad you're doing the numbers bands like Patreon and like they're kind of like web content that, like
the Facebook, I do the Facebook and the flyers, all those digital flyers that you see that you've ever seen for the past 15 years. Those are all me. I do all that stuff, so I'm sort of the visual face. I'm the invisible sort of visual face of the band.
Well, I'm glad you're doing it because these guys are a treasure, and like,
oh yeah,
it's so hard to like, because I play in a band too, and like it's a lot to like manage like all the media and all the everything else. You have to be a web designer. You have to do just to play the show. You know what I mean? Like, and then do
exactly.
the show. So like,
that's why it gets handed off to me, because that leaves them to work on the music and the show. That's it. They don't need to be thinking about this other stuff. They just need to be artists and do their art. So, and same thing with me, but my art happens to be, this other stuff, that complements what they do. So, it all works out.
Right. Well, and I totally agree. It is an art within itself to make a flyer that resonates, to put together a film, it's all, like, so to, especially with these guys coming from like a different generation, to then have to learn all that later, you're like, what do you mean? I just go play the show. I mean, I would be that way, like, so, but either way, I say that all to say thank you for preserving and keeping the legend alive, because like, it's like,
it's important.
It is.
Yeah.
So through doing this research and finding all these recordings and such, two questions. Do you do music? And was like learning how to restore like recordings, like sonic recordings and like film. Was that a new skill you had to learn to do these projects?
Well, I played music. Yeah, I played in bands and stuff, although it's been a long time. So, but I know how to play. I know all that stuff. So I come to it with that background. But really, I was never really particularly that great of a musician. But I found that I could do, although I was in some really cool projects, but I found I could do this other stuff a lot better. And if I apply it to numbers band, it lifts the whole organization. It lifts everything up. So And as I've been doing, I mean, in the 15 years, I have become exponentially a better editor, a better designer, all that stuff. I've just can't, you keep up with all the technology, and every time they have a show, I have to come up with a new flyer. I mean, I don't have to, but that's the bar I've set for myself. And so you just keep learning, you keep figuring out stuff. There's always some new little trick with each flyer. So yeah, it's made me exponentially a better designer, better filmmaker, better archivist, the whole deal.
Beautiful. What bands were you in?
Let's see. Nothing that you've probably ever heard of. I can say that.
Maybe.
But let's see. I don't know. I mean, it goes back to, I'm sure you haven't, but you know what? Maybe there are some musicians that I worked with. I was in a band in the 90s. We called ourselves Amazing Larry.
Okay.
And two of those guys are now two of those guys in that band are now got integrated into the Twist Offs.
Okay.
The next band I was in was called Las Vegas Tumbleweed Connection. Couple of those guys got absorbed into what is that, Davenport scene? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the Beachland people crowd, yeah. Like what was that band with Ken Jansen? Hot Rails, the Hot Rails, remember them?
Yeah.
So that crew, so my second band, those musicians got absorbed into that Hot Rails kind of crew. First band, those musicians got absorbed into that Twist Offs crew. Third band I was working with this guy, Mark David. He's out of Akron, singer-songwriter, amazing. And it was all the work that we were doing was at the time that I kind of stumbled into numbers band, and I just kind of like stopped playing music and just got on the numbers band train. So that's what I did. I was never a great musician. I just liked playing in bands and being, playing music with other people. But I just found that everybody else was always better than me. So,
But I mean, they say that's who you want to be around. You want to be by the cats. What was your main? Were you playing bass, guitar, drums? Like what was?
Bass and guitar.
Sick. Okay.
Yeah, cool. in the two different bands. So yeah.
Very cool.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. I see the Twist Offs all the time popping up on social media, which is cool that they're still doing stuff, man.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're fantastic. They were fantastic 30 years ago. They're fantastic now. I mean, really great energy, great songs, great songwriting.
Yeah.
Really original stuff.
That's the one. So out of all your research and time with the scene here, what would you say is one kind of like defining factor or a handful of defining factors that makes it something from like our Northeast Ohio neck of the woods, Kent neck of the woods?
What makes it unique? What makes it interesting? What makes us great? What should we take pride in? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, or just one thing you've noticed, like out of all the bands and research you've done from the music here, what's something like is there a commonality? Is there a factor that's very Kent? Is there like a factor to the Kent sound? Like every dude's all these bands, like they have this to it. You know what I mean? Or
I don't know. I don't know if I could say. I don't know if I can. Everybody kind of brings something different to the table, and everybody's scene is kind of different, I suppose. The one thing that I can say that is unique about Kent is how much how much incredible talent, God-given talent, if you will, that ended up, going off into much bigger stratospheres that really you can trace back to this town. People talk about the great college music towns. And I think that Kent is probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, college music town that ever was. And I think that at least in terms of what it brought out to the world, what it gave to the world. People bring up Athens, Georgia. They love to do that, and I love REM. I mean, that was my band when I was in high school. I loved them, and B-52s and all that kind of stuff. But I think that Kent had more and better bands. The reason why Kent did not get, and this is why I did my book, the reason why Kent did not get the kind of recognition that a place like Athens, Georgia did was because the history of this town always defaults to the shootings,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
bigger than music history. This is, the shootings are really sort of the line of demarcation between the 60s and the 70s. I mean, it was like a big bang of sorts. It killed one era and it began another era, and that's bigger than any band that comes out of here. And so all the stories of Devo and the James Gang, and all that kind of Joe, and Chrissy Hine and all that, those things got became footnotes in the May 4th story. And but if there hadn't been a May 4th, the story would be these bands and this music, like how Athens, Georgia is. And it really, all those stories got buried for decades. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, was this stuff needed to get out. What happened here? I lived here my whole life. I was born and raised in Kent. It took me till I was in my late 30s to really figure out the Joe Walsh story, even though I'm a music fanatic, and it happened all the stuff about Joe Walsh in Kent. It was all just little blips of stories that people had, vague recollections. Nobody had really, done the really hardcore research. And Joe left town before I was born and took all his stories with him, to Colorado and California. So I was sort of left here to figure that all out, And I was looking at it like, if I didn't do it, nobody was going to do it. Because if I was 38, 39 years old and that story wasn't out there yet, there wasn't a book about this stuff yet, nobody was going to do it. So I figured out I got to figure this out before it's too late, before all these people die with their stories, And as I was getting these stories, people were pulling out photographs and, oh, I have an 8mm film of this and that, and it really blossomed into all kinds of stuff. So as far as like, I don't know if I believe in the Akron sound or this notion of an Akron sound, but I definitely can tell you that there was a robust scene of musicians and artists in this area. And not only that, we were getting influences from all around the world with our bigger venues that were bringing the biggest acts of the day locally to Kent and to Akron and to Cleveland. So, that's what makes us unique. And also, we're not California or New York. Nobody has anything to prove around here. I lived on the West Coast for a little while, and it seemed like everybody had something that they needed to kind of prove to one another, whether they were worthy of it or not. Now, I never really saw that attitude around here. People just kind of live. And if you're a musician, you're a musician and whatnot. So there's not this kind of, one-upsmanship about how good you are, or how cool you are, or whatever. Not, at least not in terms of like, or this empty one-upsmanship, I should say, not in terms of like what I've seen in other places. So,
yeah, that's cool. No, like I agree with what you say. Like the one thing from the bit of just research I've done myself doing these type of talks and just like growing up here is the one thing I've every band I've got into that, like the Peruwoos and the Numbers Band and the Devo, all these bands are like really, really, really unique. There's nothing else like that. And I think what you just said kind of leads to something like that. And like the May 4th story is like such a gravitational pool of like anything that was around it, I'd imagine kind of gets sucked into being affected by that. And like, so through your research and meeting these people and like people sharing, like that one for them has to be super sick that someone cares. I got stuff to share, like that's.
Yeah, I did have many people that were like, you really want to hear this story? I want to hear this story. That's why I got the recorder on. Tell me, what the hell happened? You spent the whole day with Frank Zappa when he came here on campus in April whatever 1973. You were the one that picked him up from the airport. You're the one that got him to the hotel. You're the one that. What happened? Tell me. I want to hear it. You ate at this place. You took Paul Simon to Jerry's Diner. What happened with like this is the kind of stuff I was getting to. I mean, and of course. A lot of these people were students at the time that had left town, that left town in 1978 and they're living in Arizona or whatever. But I find traces of these people. I was able to track them down through social media by the time we're in like the 2012s. And I'm saying, hey, tell me your story. I know you got a couple stories. Tell me what happened. And so, and again, these people are a generation older than me. And I'm like about to hit if not grandparent age, you got to get these stories before it's too late, or else they will die with these people.
It's true. That's true. Was it so out of hunting down some of these stories, what have you, like, I mean, they're all remarkable, but which ones have resonated with you, like, that you still maybe find yourself kind of reflecting on?
I love the story of when Springsteen played in town in '74, right before he broke huge. It's a great story. I talked to the promoter. He was here for the Wildly Innocent and the E Street Shuffle, which is the second Springsteen album, which I think is one of the greatest albums. I'm not even like a Springsteen fanatic or anything, but I still think that's one of the greatest albums in the history of rock and roll. And it's right before he breaks out with Born to Run. But these two college kids that brought him in to play in the ballroom. And one of the sort of theses of my book is that the college kids, even to this day, always know what's cool first. And so the college kids that are bringing in all this music to the university, we're getting them as they're on a career trajectory that hasn't peaked yet. So Elton John plays on campus in '72. Pink Floyd play in the gym here the week that The Dark Side of the Moon is released.
Wow.
And they play The Dark Side of the Moon in its entirety, and it's sold out. But like The Dark Side of the Moon hasn't exploded into like the biggest album of all time yet. It's only been around for like 3 or 4 days. But the college kids knew to book this band because something was happening. So that's I'm in my 50s, but I still know that the college kids always know what's cool first. And that really comes down there. And they always, and they knew it was the college kids that created the James Gang. It was the college kids. Kent State birthed Devo, on a multitude of levels, not just in, you hear Jerry and Mark talk about how much May 4th affected them, but really those guys met in an art class on campus. And so, this, I don't even know where I was going with that, but it's cool. It's an incredible, there's so many stories, and the stuff that I was able to uncover, the films and the photographs, and, maybe you've seen that photograph of the measles, that Joe Walsh photograph where he's 19 years old and he's playing on campus. Let me see if I can show it to you here. This thing has made its way. I don't know. Can you see this? Let's see here. Let me see if I can.
Okay. Yeah.
You've seen that?
Yeah.
So this was taken by a guy.
God. Yeah.
So he's 19 years old and he's playing on campus. That was taken by a guy, Rich Underwood, who was in the measles, who I interviewed for my book. But that photo was not public until I made it public in my blog, and it's in my book. It's on the cover of my book, and now it's everywhere. Now it's like an iconic photo of Joe Walsh, in the measles. So, there was so much discovery. And I would never have encountered that photograph had I not interviewed Rich Underwood, who was in the measles, who took that photograph. And that never would have surfaced had it not been for that, And you know what? And you're going to see, if you come to see the film, the Numbers Band film, one of the coolest pieces of footage in there is we have footage of Jerry Casale in '72 in the band.
Yeah, nice.
Like pre-Devo. Playing bass, good 16 millimeter footage with audio. Wow. So that was another piece that came out of all that.
Where'd that come up? How'd you find where'd that come from?
So some guy, his name's Will Ling. He actually shot some unbelievable footage on May 4th, 1970. But he had contacted me because he knew that I was somebody. I think he lived at the time in California. He lives in Texas now. But he contacted me because he knew I was interested in a lot of this old Kent stuff. And he moved out of town in like 72 or 73. I think it's 73. And he took all of his recordings and films that he made with him. And like a lot of these people, he contacted me and said, hey, do you have any interest in this stuff? And so we were talking. He's like, oh, I have I recorded a band called the Numbers Band one night. Would you be interested in this recording? I'm like, yeah, I fucking work for these guys. Send it over. So he sent over this recording. And I mean, he actually recorded them down in the Cove with a quadraphonic reel-to-reel recorder with like 4 microphones and everything. So I got this thing. Yeah, so it's actually I got this 4-track recording of them at the Cove, and it was like 2.5 hours, 3 hours long. Like one of these, like one of their typical just any night shows. And I'm listening, and the set list is like kind of unusual, even for the time. Probably like a third of the songs you don't hear were never performed in any previous recordings or any even later recordings. And it was really cool. I mean, it's real bluesy, a lot of bluesy stuff. And whenever I get a new recording, I'll play it for Bob. And one of the games that we like to play is who's in the lineup on this night, right? And you can figure it out by, oh, I hear 3 horn players. That means that this is in this time period, and it's this lineup. Or wait a minute, I hear these 2 guitar players, and one of these is clearly this guy, so it must be this. So we're listening to this one, and we cannot. It's clearly Numbers Band, and between the two of us, we are just like, we cannot figure out what this lineup is. Yeah, maybe it's this, maybe it's this. We can't figure out who's on. Maybe it's this drummer. It's definitely early 70s. It's cool. So then we just, there are a few recordings where it's like, who the fuck knows? So like, but it was a killer recording. So like about 2 months later, the guy contacts me again. He's like, hey, I shot 16 millimeter footage that night. Would you be interested in it? Maybe you could line it up with some of that audio. And I was like, yeah, man, send it over. And he sends it over. And I'm like looking, and the first thing I see, there's Jerry Casale playing bass, playing that left-handed Gibson SG bass that would go with him to Devo. And I'm just like, I'm looking at him like, holy fuck, there he is. Like, that's one of the lost great like jewels, that's one of the holy grails of like, of this hunt is Jerry Casale in the Numbers Band. And there it was. We had a film and we have audio. So, there was, yeah. So, I wasn't even looking for the movie footage. That was like when I was doing like the book stuff. He was just, and I was like, holy fuck. Of course I sent it over to Bob, and he was like, he was elated that we had this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, his reactions are always so interesting because he's so like critical about what he does. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But he was stoked for that. God. Yeah.
Yeah, he was excited that we uncovered the history, because it had been thought by Jerry Casale that there was no record whatsoever, even though we know historically he was in the band, but he had thought there was no record of anything of him being in there, whether it be photographs or recordings or film or anything. And over the 15 years, we uncovered a ton of shit, and I'll tell you what, it took a while. Neither Bob nor Jerry could remember the exact timeline of when he was in the band. We just knew it was somewhere 71 to 73, but I figured out he was in the specific 5 months that he was in the band. And through that, there was one recording in Bob's arsenal, in Bob's cache, that we did not know, or that he did not know, until we figured out the exact dates. That actually was when Jerry had joined, and it was the first month, and it's Jerry on drums.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, so we have a recording of it's 100. It's for sure. It's 100% him. So we in the course of all this, we found one recording with Jerry on drums, one night of recording of him on drums, and then 2 more additional recordings when Jerry was on bass, and the 16 millimeter film. So those, that's one example of some of the incredible stuff that we were able to uncover through, all my research. But that's just a couple things. I mean, we could go on for hours about it.
That's so cool though, man. That's so cool. Like, were you able to talk with Jerry at all about
Yeah.
Very
cool. He's in the movie. We interviewed him, and he was great. He was really cool. It was almost like he'd been waiting for years for someone to ask him about his experience in the Numbers Band. And he had a lot to say. and so that's in there. You'll see it. He was up at one of those devotionals, and we caught him
Gotcha.
there,
Okay, very cool.
and
Very
that's
cool.
where we interviewed him.
Did you so with with the book and everything, were you able to talk with like Joe Walsh and stuff as well?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
Joe Walsh
dude.
wrote the foreword to the
Yeah.
book,
Okay, very
and
cool.
yeah, and he gave me a ton of great information too, and yeah, he would. It was wild because he offered to do it. That's a whole story in and of itself. He showed up on campus and got to see a manuscript of my book when he was on campus. This is in 2017, and he offered to do the forward right there. Like I
Wow,
didn't even
cool,
ask him,
man.
or yeah, I didn't even ask him or any. It was just this. You know, what do they say? Luck is preparation meets opportunity or whatever. And by the time he showed up on campus in 2017, I had a whole manuscript all with photographs and everything already written. And like a day before, I work at Kent State University Libraries. The dean of the library was like, "Hey, Joe Walsh is going to be in the building tomorrow. Can we show him some of your work?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." But yeah, what were you were asking about, Joe?
No, I
What
was
were you
just
asking about?
asking if with all the work that you've done, if you were able to communicate with
Yeah.
him.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah,
so
yeah. You know
cool.
what? And actually, when he offered to do it, I didn't actually believe he was going to do it. But he took my phone number, and then he would call me.
Yeah?
He would like call me in the middle of the night, like my phone. I would, pick up my phone. And it would say Joe Walsh. I'd be like, "Holy fuck, Joe Walsh is calling me!" But he would call. He wouldn't call me just like to talk, like, "Hey, what's going on?" He would always call me to give me like an update on how the forward was going. But then we would end up talking about all kinds of other
Yeah.
stuff,
That's so
and
cool,
so
man.
yeah, and it would be sporadic. There was one, I'm generally in like a really super good mood like all the time, but there was this one day I was just having a really shitty day at work. It's very rare, but I was just like, rah, rah, rah. And all of a sudden my phone rings and I see it's Joe Walsh. And I'm like, oh, Joe Walsh is calling me. Like everybody, like,
That's so cool. Well, how
and,
could you
I take
not
the
be, man? That's sick,
I
dude.
know. Yeah,
Wow.
I ended up going. I ended up going backstage when the Eagles were at the Quicken Loans, yeah, fall 2018, pre COVID. There, he invited me back. That was when the time he was doing the forward and all that. It was incredible, and he gave me. Do you know the story of the Jimmy Page guitar?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Like he sold. Wait, I wrote for the listeners. Remind me of the story.
So Jimmy Page's iconic Gibson Les Paul #1 is 1959 Les Paul, the iconic sunburst Les Paul that you think of when you think of Led Zeppelin, besides that double neck guitar. Jimmy Page got that from Joe Walsh in April of 1969, and it is to this day Jimmy Page's #1 Les Paul. It was every concert they ever did in the 70s. It's on the entirety of Led Zeppelin 2 when they played at Live Aid. He's playing that guitar. When they did that last concert at the O2 Arena, he's playing that guitar. It is the like iconic Led Zeppelin guitar. Well, you can see. Let's see, can you see this here? Let's go up to my wall here. Can you see hold on here. Whoop. You see Joe? So that's December 68, either December 68 or January 69. And that is in JB's. And that's at the set break of a James Gang show. And you can see Joe is playing a Sunburst Les Paul, right? And that's another Rich Underwood photo. Rich Underwood, who took that photo of the measles that I showed you earlier. I got that right out of his photo album. Like he showed me these photos. He's like, "Oh, it's the James Gang. I took these photos while I was on break from the military." And I didn't even think about it. It's just like a really cool Les Paul. And then slowly I started figuring out that maybe is this the Les Paul he sold to Jimmy Page? And when, excuse me, when I went to backstage for the Eagles, I brought the photographs with me because by that time I had done all the research into that guitar, and I was 99% sure that guitar in those photographs was that guitar, except for specifically asking Joe Walsh. And so when he was in the room, I showed him the photographs. I'm like, dude, is this the guitar? Here's you playing this guitar at JB's in December of 68, January 69, photographed by Rich Underwood. Is this the guitar? Is this the Les Paul #1? He's like, oh, yeah, that's it. That's the one. And I think he sold it to him for like $500. And then, but a '59 Les Paul today with no provenance, but a genuine '59 Les Paul, I think those sell for about $250,000. Imagine with the Led Zeppelin provenance, how much?
Oh, yeah, dude, for sure. That's
Yeah,
all the money
it's
in.
$1 million that thing is probably worth.
Oh my God.
But Joe has joked that he's tried to buy it back off of him many times. So we sold it to him at the Fillmore West in San Francisco in April of '69. And you can look at a photo chronology of the band from that spring. And up until the Fillmore West, Joe's playing that Telecaster, that famous, or not Joe, Jimmy Page is playing that psychedelic Telecaster. And then starting at the Fillmore West, he's playing the Les Paul. And then all the gigs after that, he's got the Les Paul. So that's what it is. He went out to California, and also those are Rich took three photographs that night, and there are only four known photographs of Joe playing that guitar. Three of which are the photographs that Rich took that night at JB's.
Wow.
So
That's
yeah,
wild. Yeah.
yeah, really cool stuff.
I've seen that one before, and like that's just it's so crazy how like one
Yeah.
connected the world is. But to be able on your end to be able to like to trace the history of it and find it, like that's so cool, man. That is so
Right.
cool.
And then after that, I really became obsessed with the story. And after that, my quest, if you will, in the story is, where did Joe get it from? Right? We know where Jimmy Page got it from. He got it from Joe Walsh, who was playing it, 3 nights a week down at JB's. Where did Joe get it from? So I finally had a chance to grill Joe. Or it's not that I on two different occasions, I knew two people that were going to be talking to Joe, and I was like, ask him where the Les Paul, ask him where he got it from. And both times the answers were really murky. It was like he can't remember where he got it from, but it was like might be one of three places. He narrowed it down to like three different transactions of guitars that he had been involved with somewhere in late '67, early '68, but he couldn't remember which one was which and which one was the one that led to that guitar. But he did say this at the time. He had two Les Pauls. He had a Gold Top and he had the Sunburst. And he sold Jimmy Page the Sunburst because it was the one that he liked least of the two.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
and it goes to redefine rock history. That's awesome.
Yeah. I know, it's incredible.
So
it's incredible.
Was it like a local shop he got it from? The three spots that it could have came from?
So one of the stories is that he bought a guitar in a guitar shop in Miami, Ohio. The other story is that he bought a guitar shop from a guitar shop in Athens, Ohio. And the other story is that he bought it from a classified ad from somebody in Akron. Because so he remembers buying, at least from what I recall how he was talking about it, he remembers buying guitars in those three circumstances, and he's positive that one of those three was where that Les Paul came from. But I mean, it might not even be any of those. So
this is the call for it,
Yeah, right.
Because
in 1967, a '59 Les Paul, it's probably worth like $300.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just another guitar. It would be like buying a guitar that was, what is this, 2026? Like you're buying like some 2018 model.
Yeah.
It's just like any guitar, but then then the Les Paul becomes like the rock and roll guitar, where it really was not the like iconic rock and roll heavy guitar until Jimmy Page made it that way.
Right.
Of
course. Yeah, of course. That's crazy. What's that? I'm trying to think of. There's that one music shop in Athens, Ohio. Got the Hawk, Blue Hawk or something. They've been around for a while. That'd be crazy if that was them. But
it might be. Yeah, it might be. The thing you got to find out, was it around in '67?
Yeah.
The landscape for musicians has changed so much since then. So who knows? Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was in a different place than it is now.
That's so sad.
Who knows? Yeah.
Oh, man.
But it came from Ohio.
Yeah.
We know, or at least according to Joe.
It's from here, man. Oh,
It's
my
from
goodness.
here. Or at least that's where that transaction took place.
Beautiful. Well, Jason, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today. I really, really
Sure.
appreciate it, man.
Yeah, come to the movie. Well, if you don't,
I'm there.
Yeah,
Robert
it's sold out.
Robert gave me a 2 tickets.
Oh,
So a while
terrific.
ago, I
Yeah,
got a
we'll
phone
see you
call
up
with him.
there.
So yeah, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
Do you have another project in the works before we let off here?
No. Well, yes and no. I have a second book, although I released it online. You can just find it, I think, at kentohiostories.com. And actually, that's where the Les Paul story is and all that kind of stuff. It complements the book. My book really kind of came about halfway into all my research. And so the second half of all my research ended up in this online book. But it's really all the blogs that everybody's been seeing. But I don't have anything for after this film. I want to work with Robert Kidney on several more like little mini docs for the Numbers Band over the next like couple of years. But then I have some ideas for some bigger docs, bigger bands, but nothing these are just things that are percolating in my head. Nothing that I've signed up for or anything like that. Right now it's all Numbers Band. It's this documentary. Let's see where this goes.
Awesome, man. Well, with whatever project comes next, I would love to get together and talk with you again about it and help spread the word.
Yeah, sure. And take a look. Go to the Numbers Band's Facebook page and watch that trailer, not in the chaos of Jilly's, which was cool, but watch that thing, right at just as you're sitting there with the headphones, watch that thing.
Will do, man.
All right.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig At The Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.